Hello, everyone. Nice to see you here. I'm Gal. I'm a product manager at MyHeritage. And I'm going to talk with you today about the latest research tool we have on MyHeritage to assist you with your DNA matches. I'm part of the product team, and I'm responsible for the growth and development of the DNA features tool to help you with genetic genealogy research. So before we start, can I just please ask to silence all the electronic devices? While you're welcome to take photos, please avoid using any audio or video recording. What am I going to talk about today? So today we're going to talk about DNA matches and shared DNA. We're going to go back to the basics a bit. From there, we're going to talk about relationships and how DNA points us to the relationship. We're going to talk about a new tool for relationship prediction and the other tools that MyHeritage has to offer you in your research of genetic genealogy. And I will also conclude with my own personal tips that I like to share for researching DNA matches. Let's start with the point where you got your DNA results. You send out your kit, and you got the exciting email that your DNA results are ready. And one of the most important things when you get your DNA results are DNA matches. DNA matches are people that we found in our database that has DNA that is similar to you, shared DNA. And each DNA match comes with a lot of information. There's a genetic information, genealogical information, and you can usually see what you have in common with these people. But also important, you can also see what you don't have in common with these people, which is also helpful. So we love matches. The more or merrier. It's more interesting to us. It helps us. But what are our research questions? What are we trying to find out? Some of you may want to find new lines in your family. Some of you may want to build your family tree or build more parts in your family tree. Your key goals might be different. But when you look at your DNA match, and I'm sure most of you know that, our research question usually comes down to this. Who is this person to me? How are we related? And through whom? Who is our common ancestor? These are the two main research questions that we found our users really interested in to help in the bigger goal of the research. So in MyHeritage, we have a lot of tools in our product suite to help you with that. And we like to define them by two types: tools that are relying on genetic data and tools that are relying on genealogical data. Now, they are both combined. You should always work with both, and both are helpful. But tools that rely on genetic data, you can mark under those the shared DNA matches, which are the matches that matches you and other people. The chromosome browser to view DNA segments, autoclusters to identify family lines, and I will talk about it later on, and I will demonstrate how you can work with them. And there's also the shared ethnicities and genetic groups that you share with people. So for each match, you can see that. There's also tools that are relying on genealogical data, which are shared ancestor surnames or shared ancestral places that you have with your matches, pedigree tree that you can view with your matches, smart matches, which are a great tool that utilize artificial intelligence and can identify between your tree and matches tree any people that are similar. And last but not least, theory of family relativity, which hint you path from you to your DNA matches based on your family tree, your genealogical information. But today, I want to talk about a new tool. This tool is called CM Explainer, and some of you may have already encountered it in your MyHeritage DNA results. And this tool comes to help with prediction of relationship to your DNA matches. And I'm going to start a bit about talking about DNA, but how do we get from DNA to relationship? I mean, I have the genetic data, but how does it help me with my research question? And this is where the CM Explainer comes to the help. The CM Explainer uses cutting-edge technology and new data to help refine the prediction and help to pinpoint you to your research question on how is this person related to you. But first, let's talk about, I promised we're going back to the basics. Let's talk about DNA and how are we moving from DNA to relationships. So I got my DNA match. This is Homer. You will see them. You see him a lot today. And this is a match card. This is when I'm looking at my matches list. This is the information, the first information that I see about my match. So I can see, first of all, the age of my match, the age of Homer. Where is he from? Which country? I can also see another information that I mentioned before that that I have in common with Homer. I can see how many people he has in his family tree, which is a very good indication. I can also see the shared ancestral surnames and shared ancestral places I have with Homer. But in terms of genetic data, what I'm seeing here is DNA match quality. And what does it mean? So I'm seeing a shared DNA that I have with Homer, which you can see is presented in either in percentages or in centimorgan. And I will explain shortly what is centimorgan. You can see the amount of shared segment and the size of the largest segment that you have with Homer. So all of this is nice, but what does it mean? Shared DNA is actually the total length or amount of DNA that we found identical between you and another person. And this is a good indication to see how you're related, how closely we are related. Now, the centimorgan is actually a unit of genetic distance, and it's used to measure the amount of shared DNA. We usually call it a distance measurement, but it's not really a distance measurement. Centimorgan is actually measuring frequency of cases where where recombination can occur at the DNA. But it's actually a good proxy in terms of genetic distance. So the more centimorgans that you have in common with a person, the more DNA you share, the more close you are. And I will show that in a second. Now, shared DNA segments are pieces of the DNA that you and your DNA match most likely inherited from a common ancestor. So we have the shared DNA, we measure it with centimorgan, and these segments are the clues to our common ancestor. So from DNA to relations. 100% of DNA, when you usually look at the percentage, you can only share with yourself, or I can share with my twin, which I'm not aware of. I hope there's no evil twin of mine somewhere in the world. And it's roughly 7,000 centimorgan. And I say roughly because it's a range. DNA is inherited in a way in a randomized way. So it's not always a clear-cut point of how many centimorgan you share with a certain person, with your first cousin or second cousin. It's always a range. But for yourself, you have 100% of DNA, and we get 50% of DNA from each of our parents. We get 50% from our mom, 50% from our dad, and we pass 50% of our DNA to our children. And now you can see that the further the amount of DNA is reduced, the further I distant in the relationship. So 25%, we share 25% with our grandfather or grandmother, aunt, uncle, niece or nephew, or grandchild. So it can be someone that is in a higher generation or a lower generation to us. 12.5, it's the great-great-parents and first cousins, and so on and so forth. So you can see, actually, the amount of DNA that we share is the proxy for the relationship. And this is a good table to have a look for seeing the shared DNA. So you can see the more generation apart, the more that I distant, the percentage of DNA is relatively small. Okay, but there are some special cases. And I promised you Homer will be back, so he's back. And I'm going to tell you the story about the Simpson family. Abraham Simpson. Ab was the father of Homer Simpson, which you probably all know. Abe was stationed during World War II in the UK, where he met Edwina. Abraham and Edwina fell in love. And by the time Abraham came back home, Edwina had a child with him called Abby, which he never knew. And it's all facts from The Simpsons. Then he came back and he met Mona. Abe and Mona got married and had children. They had 2 children, Homer and Herb. Now, it's simple as that. Homer and Abe are full siblings because they share 2 ancestors, 2 parents. And Bart and Martin, the children of Homer and Herb, are first cousin. And their common ancestors are two grandparents, Abe and Mona. Now let's look at Abby. Abby is the half-sister of Homer and Herb. They are half-siblings. And Abby had a child. She's named Terry. But what is Terry to Bart? They are half-first cousin. Now, when we go to other relationships, it's sometimes hard to comprehend the half relationship. But it's easy to think about it when we think about the common ancestor. When we have a full relationship with someone, we share two common ancestors. When we have a half relationship with someone, it means we share only one common ancestor. In the case of Terry and Bart, they share a single common ancestor, which is Abraham. So we said that 25%, for example, indicates us on this relationship. Grandparents, aunt, uncle, niece, nephew, and grandchild. But these are full relationship. So what happens if I have a half relationship in my family? If my dad had a partner and I have a sibling, in that case, in terms of the genetic data and the amount of shared DNA, it's actually the same as these full relationships. So DNA is a good proxy for the relationships, but I have 5 options here, even 6. Which one of them should I look for? How I get a person, and I know this DNA match, me and this DNA match share 25% of DNA. But where should I look for? So there is something else we need to look. And what I'm showing you is a result of a fine research that we did, the science team in MyHeritage did. And they actually took all the relationship types from the vast amount of family trees in MyHeritage database and looked at the age difference between two people. They took a grandchild and a grandparent and saw what will be the average age difference. And you can see each one of the curves represents the age difference. So the x-axis is actually the age difference in years. And you can see it for each relationship. And you can actually see the difference. You can see that in when someone is my grandparents, the age difference between us will be, on average, 60 years. My grandparent will be, on average, 60 years older than me. But grandchild, it's the other way around. Aunt and niece also. Aunt is 1 generation on top of me. We also looked at half-siblings, and we looked at all the half-relationship. We actually noticed that in some cases, in half-relationship, the age difference will be much wider in terms of the distribution. And that's because of the nature of the things. So we saw the DNA, we saw the ages, and let's see how we can refine and pinpoint a specific relationship. And this is an example. So 25%, we saw there were 5 or 6 options. For example, 1,700 of shared DNA, centimorgan of shared DNA. That is roughly the amount of any type of this relationship. But in most cases, I mean, all of us know our age. In most cases, we will also know the match's age. It's usually also provided to us. And for example, when the age difference between me and my age is so slow, we can use the distribution that we found to actually fine-tune the probabilities and the relationship. So for example, you see here an example of the research. 1,700 of shared DNA, my age 33, my match's age 41, and MyHeritage was able to tell me that in 83.8%, this is half-sibling, and in 16.2%, it's aunt-uncle. So we actually ruled out impossible relationship. No more looking at if this is a grandchild, or if this is a niece, nephew. We can refine these probabilities. This is quite a simple example, but it can also be further enhanced for other relationships such as cousins. So that's what we did. And MyHeritage actually collaborated with Larry Jones from the CM Solver technology, the developer of its technology. And then in the past 5 months, our science team work on enhancing the algorithm using the vast data amounts that we have in MyHeritage. And we created a CM explainer. The CM explainer is the tool that helps you to get prediction for your relationship. But it's not just that. It simplifies the things and help you with the research questions. If you have DNA matches on MyHeritage, so the CM explainer is already integrated within your DNA matches results. So once you get them, you are able to see the algorithm in work, and it will pinpoint you to the probable relationship. It will show you all the possibilities along with predictions. But if you don't have any DNA results on MyHeritage, you can also access this point as a standalone tool available on myheritage.com/CM. So you can actually get the amount of shared CM that you get in any other company and the ages, and it will give you refined results. And this is an example of my match. Samuel, this is not Samuel. This is Homer protecting the privacy of Samuel. And this is the DNA match card. And before, when I got the estimated relationship to Samuel, I saw that it can be my great uncle, first cousin once removed, second cousin. What is first cousin once removed? I know that most of you, the experts, when you say first cousin once removed, you immediately know what it means. But not everyone does. So what will happen now? The CM explainer, when integrated in the DNA matches, will actually show you the probable relationship that we found. In that case, the range that I previously got for Samuel is now indicated with a probable relationship. No more first cousin once removed. Simple as that. Parents' first cousin. My parents' cousin. A lot easier to think about it, a lot easier to pinpoint. So now you go to the review DNA match page, and there's more information there. We'll provide you everything. So you can see the probable relationship on top, and on the bottom, you will see this section, possible relationships. The possible relationships shows you the relationship types that we found that are possible for the DNA match. We will provide you the probability so you can actually focus your research on the relationship that are most probable. It's not just that. There's no more range, but you can also see there's a difference. We tell you if it can be a full relationship or a half relationship. If it's a parent's first cousin, or maybe a half uncle or half first cousin. And going back to the research question, we said, we want to know how this DNA match is related to me, right? But in some cases, or most cases, we also want to know through whom. Who is the common ancestor in that case? So what we did is we also added here the most recent common ancestor in respective to you. So when I'm looking at my parents' first cousin, I know the common ancestor of me, him, are my great-great-parents. I know this is the line I should look for. If it was my half-uncle, I know there will be only a single common ancestor. Remember when we talked about half relationship? Half relationship are a result of a single common ancestor, not two. So you will be able to know there's only one, a great parent. It's not just that. When you click on the relationship plus diagram, you were able to see the path to your DNA match. So we saw the relationship and we saw the probabilities, but we also showed you, we also give you more information. So first of all, for each DNA match, we will indicate you based on what we calculated the relationship and probabilities. In that case, the relationship was calculated based on the shared DNA and my age and Samuel's age. In some cases, people will not have their age on MyHeritage. It will work only if one of you has age, and I will show that in a minute, but will indicate you based on what these probabilities were calculated. Now let's go to the diagram below. After you clicked on Show More Relationship in Diagram, it will show more possible relationship if we found more, and also the diagram. And the diagram is actually a visual aid for you to identify the path to your DNA match. So it's not your family tree. It's actually a mean to identify how do you need to go to the DNA and through whom. In purples are the possible relationship that we found, and you can see the percentages there. Here is the probable relationship that MyHeritage found for Samuel, my parents' first cousin. And you can actually see in the purple lines through whom we are connected. Where do you need to look? Now, the diagram, you can actually see, it only shows the full relationship. But it's here to help you focus on your research question. In some cases, you already know if you're looking for a full relationship or a half relationship. You already know if there was a second marriage, for example, in the family, in one of the ancestors, and you need to look for full or half. So you'll be able to focus the research question, and you will be able to also switch the view. So now I'm viewing the full relationship. When I click on half relationship in the diagram viewer, the diagram will show me the possible half relationship. So you can see I have a possible relationship of half uncle or half first cousin. And the ancestor is, again, a single ancestor. If you also want, you can view all the relationships together. So you can just click on all relationship, and the diagram will show them all together. So it's up to you. You can decide where do you want to focus on. Now, there's this checkbox, and this one is important. Show probabilities for MRCA. MRCA stands for Most Recent Common Ancestor. It's the closest ancestor that you and the DNA match share. And again, it's not just I want to know how this match is related to me, what's the relationship, but I want to know through whom and the probability of that. So you can actually see that in that case, parents' first cousin and second cousin may be different relationship, but the common ancestor will be the same, my great-great-parents, and this is the common ancestor I should focus on. So when you click on Show Probabilities for MRCA, you will actually see the probabilities that we found for the most likely, most recent common ancestor. It's actually the sum of the probabilities that comes from the line of this person, this ancestor. And in bold, you can also see the most probable common ancestor. OK. So we saw we have prediction for relationship. We have the most recent common ancestor. But also important tool when researching DNA matches are the shared DNA matches. And as I mentioned, shared DNA matches are the people that share DNA with you and the DNA match that you're currently viewing. And these are important because these are the clues for the family line and the clues to identify this person. And when you go to the shared DNA matches section, you will also be able to see the probable relationship that we found of each one of the shared DNA matches. So that's my example. You can see here, first line, my brother, which is a first cousin son to Samuel. So what happens if you don't have DNA matches on MyHeritage? You can always upload your DNA file and receive free matches. But you can also access this tool, the CM Explainer standalone tool. This is the link. This is the address for the tool. And once you get to it, you'll be able to enter the amount of DNA and the ages. The ages are optional. You can do it without it. You can also have only one age, in case you know that. If you do have a MyHeritage account, once you go into the DNA tools and you see the CM Explainer box here, you can also access it from there. Or even if you don't have any MyHeritage account, then you can also access the tool as a guest. I told you that the algorithm also works when I only know one age, and it can also refine the probabilities. I got a DNA match of 195 centimorgan, and this is a hard one. And my age, for example, will be 38. I'm not 48, but for example. And let's see what I get. I will see all the possible relationships. The possible relationships, same as when you view in your DNA matches. You can see the probability of each. But we will also indicate the most probable. And we will also indicate what is the most probable common ancestor. In a case of second cousin, the most probable common ancestor will be our great-great-parents. So you can even see that from here. When you scroll down, you will also be able to see the diagram. You'll be able to see the percentages of each relationship. And you can also view the probabilities for the most recent common ancestor. So the CM Explainer tool can pinpoint you to the probabilities of the possible relationship, but also to the probability or the likelihood of the common ancestor with the match. And you can see it here. I can also switch to half relationship in that case, as we saw in the DNA match page. And I can view the half relationship, the path to them, the common ancestor, which will be single in that case. There are special cases of endogamy and pedigree collapse. Endogamy is usually when there are marriages within a specific group or community. For example, Ashkenazi Jewish have a lot of endogamy in this ethnicity group. And pedigree collapse happen when marriages between two people inside the family have a common ancestor. For example, marriages between cousins. Now, in cases of pedigree collapse or endogamy, the amount of shared DNA between two individuals who are related will be larger than expected. So, for example, second cousins that have endogamy in their family or pedigree collapse will expect to have more of shared DNA. And in endogamy or pedigree collapse, there are two problems. For one, we cannot always know the extent of the endogamy or the endogamy in the family. We cannot know how many marriages within the family were, and the more there were, then the more shared DNA we'll expect to share. We also don't know, for example, in pedigree collapse, when there are marriages between people who share a common ancestor, where did that happen? For example, if my grandparents were first cousin or second cousin, got married and had me, that pedigree collapse, that endogamy, will not affect people that are second cousin or second cousin, other second cousin in the family. So we cannot know that. So it's important to note that the CM Explainer does not take into account cases of pedigree collapse and endogamy. In that cases, there are other tools that can help you in your research question. You can look at the segment and the longest segment length, which are a good proxy to know how this match is related to you when you have such cases. So to conclude the CM Explainer, the main takeaways of what is the novelty in that case. It uses an algorithm that takes into account the ages of the DNA match. And it fine-tunes the results. And it provides you the probability for each relationship type. So no more probabilities for a group of relationship where you need to look within it. You'll be able to know the likelihood of each specific relationship. And no more vague terms like 1C, 1R, just simple as that. It's your parents' first cousin or your first cousin child. It will pinpoint you to the path. And it will also allow you to focus your research by relationship type. So if you want to focus on half relationship or full relationship based on your interest, you'll be able to use that. And it also points you to the probable most recent common ancestor. So it actually helps with the research questions of who is this person to me, how we are connected. Now, there are other tools to use when you want to determine the common connection with a match, and I called it the golden trio. So we have the CM Explainer, which uses centimorgan and ages to refine results and get likelihoods. But there are also two other tools that are important in that case. Autoclusters, which helps you to identify family lines in your family, and the chromosome browser, which help you to focus your research on DNA segments, not just on shared DNA, but on specific segments that can lead you to an ancestor. What are autoclusters in short? Autoclusters basically organize your DNA matches into clusters of shared matches of people who share DNA with each other. And each of these clusters, each one of these boxes you see here in different color, actually points you to a line of a common ancestor, to a specific branch in your family. So you can use this tool when you want to identify lines of your family. And you can access it, again, from the DNA tools under autoclusters. You can just select to generate an autocluster for each one of your kits And remember, when you manage multiple kits, you will get different results. So you can generate that, and you will get it in a second. Chromosome browser. So chromosome browser, this tool allows you to view shared DNA segments between you and other DNA matches. These are called triangulated segments. Why triangulated? Because it's a party of 3 or more. It's segments that you all have in common, specifically on a DNA, on a chromosome, on a DNA strand. And this points you to a common ancestor. Because DNA segments, shared DNA segments, are segments that you most likely inherited from a person. So you use this tool when you want to identify a common ancestor, when you want to look for people that can help lead you to that person. When you go to the DNA tools, you will be able to click on Explore under Chromosome Browser and get to it. For example, this is my comparison with my mom and my grandma. And you can see the triangulated segments that we have with each other on each chromosome. And I invite you to view also other webinars on MyHeritage, where we explain more about these tools. So you can see in each bubble, this is the triangulated segment, a segment that me, my mom, and my grandma all share. In that case, the common ancestor will be my grandma. But these are the segments that me and my mom both inherited from my grandma. And for each segment, you can also see the information about it, such as the genomic position, on which chromosome we found it, and much more. Now, DNA matches, tips, and techniques. And I always love to end with my own personal tips on how to use MyHeritage tool to find more about your DNA matches. And how you can get the most out of them. So first and foremost, build your family tree. Genetic information could not stand alone in genealogical research. You should always use other genealogical tools. When you build your family tree on MyHeritage, it will help you also get more out of other tools. You can use discoveries to view other people. When you have more people in your family tree, you will get more smart matches, and you will get more record matches. What are smart matches and record matches? These are people that we saw in your tree and in another person's tree, and we found to be identical. We looked at the information, the name, the year, and we tell you a hint that it might be the same person. And you can add these people to your tree. And then what? The tree grows, and it grows. So we can only start by putting the people that you know on your tree, and then MyHeritage will do the work. Then we tell you more people that you can add. And when you go to look in your DNA matches, these tools are coming for your help. So you'll be able to see shared surnames. Surnames comes from your tree. When I'm looking at a DNA match and I see we have shared surnames between us, that's a clue for me to know from which family line, from which side we match. And use other features that you see there. Not just the shared surnames. There's also the shared places and shared ethnicities. Shared ethnicities come from your genetic data, but shared places are places that you marked on your family tree, that any ancestral events occurred. So for example, if you mark that your ancestor was born or deceased in a certain place, it will be indicated for you when you're viewing a DNA match, and you can also see the places that this match has on their tree. And you can actually look at the same information and see if it matches. So it's surnames, it's places, all this information comes to the help. And most importantly, contact your DNA matches. I know it sometimes can be hard. Sometimes you want to know what to say or what to ask. But this is important. For example, if you're looking at your DNA match and in CM Explainer you saw there's no age of the match. And remember, the age helps to refine the probabilities. Contact your match. Ask them to put their age. They probably know their age. Contact them. Ask them questions. Share information. This is the most important thing to get the most of the DNA matches. You do the research, but in the end, you want to connect with people. Contact them. Now, as I mentioned, even if you don't have a MyHeritage kit, you can always go and upload your DNA data on MyHeritage. Uploading is free, and you get DNA matches for free. And then you will get the CM Explainer prediction integrated within your matches. So I invite you to go, upload your DNA file, and start using that. Some announcements before I will end. We have the MyHeritage booth here, the big booth in orange. And there's a special sale. It's a very good price for DNA kits, $39. So I invite you to go there and buy your MyHeritage kit today. Or again, you can upload. Any one of our representatives in the booth can help you with uploading your DNA files. So you can go there. We have computers there. You can assist them. And also, we have a special discount of 50% off all subscriptions now at RootsTech. So I invite you to go there and see. And we have a lot of boot classes through this day and tomorrow. We also have some lecture hall session. Today, 1:30, there will be a message from our founder and CEO, Gilad Jaffet. So I encourage you to come. It's always interesting. And if you have any more questions, I will be here. And you can always go to our Knowledge Center and ask more. That's it. Thank you, everyone. It's on?